Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Dojo Live by Nearsoft, broadcasting from the beautiful Mexico City offices. And today we have, we're honored to be hosting Katya Margolin. Katya is a writer, content marketing strategist, editor, and she's what I was looking at, reading about Katya is kind of amazing because of all the her feats and her accomplishments. But I'll let Katya do the talking. But in the meantime, real quick, I just want to thank my fellow Nearsoftians, Matt Perez, and also of course Jorge Simons, and Jorge, Matt. Thank you so much for being here, guys, again as ever. Okay, and thank you, Katya, for having agreed to be here with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, it's our pleasure. All right, well, here we go. Katya, I'd like to start off by asking you, I have several questions for you today, and I also want to remind the audience that they can send us their questions here by Twitter on DojoLIVE. Just go to Twitter, send us your questions, and we'll read them to Katya. Katya, I understand that you have, you have interviewed very, very interesting folks in different, even more interesting companies, right, all over. And you've learned about their work, the culture, and how it sets people up to thrive. And so what can you tell us, to begin with, what can you tell us on what you have discovered in this journey of talking and interviewing a whole bunch of people in these companies? Let's start by that, and welcome to the show. The mic's all yours.
Sure. Thank you, Carlos. So it was really exciting to be able to have a conversation with people in leadership roles at some companies, some of the most innovative companies and companies that I admire, and to get an idea of how they do what they do. I wrote a article series on Virgin, Richard Branson's Virgin Group. And so the name of this talk today is basically, what do some of the most innovative businesses have in common? And, you know, I want to say is actually that they're all doing things differently, which may or may not seem like a cop-out answer, but in a fashion, the main thing is that they are, I think, experimenting and doing things differently. I think also one thing is they've decided that the traditional model, which comes from the industrial age, is no longer serving us. So in order to really thrive and reach their full potential, they need to find a new, more relevant and more effective way to do things, to work and create. And the other major point is that there isn't just one alternative. There's a lot of talk now about holacracy. Everyone's looking and pointing fingers at Zappos. And there's a lot of misinformation too about the different alternatives. So there's this umbrella of future of work, and it actually has a lot of different approaches and models. So it seems, to my understanding from my conversations, especially with some thought leaders in self-management, is that holacracy is not actually true self-management. So that's one misconception that there seems to be on a mass scale. And then there's so many other approaches that may be inspired by some of the principles of self-management, but they differ in how they play out. So there's sociocracy and democratic management and participatory management, and I think something called, I'm going to mess up the name, but podularity or something like that, would focus on pods. There's actually so many approaches. It's really fascinating. You can really spend a lot of time just studying even one of them and how it might work. So that's the thing, is that they're all experimenting. They've all seemed to decide for themselves that the old world model is not serving them. And they are finding just better approaches for today's era, which is a completely different world from the world in which traditional management seemed helpful for businesses.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Katya. As I was listening to you, I couldn't help but wonder when you used several times the expression "no longer serving us." So I'd like to ask you, before I pass on the mic to Jorge and to Matt, I'd like to ask you from this. How can I say this? No longer serving us. I sense that there's some kind of disengagement between the company's organization and the company's teammates or employees, right? So, what's going on there? What have you discovered, or what do you think the reason is for this to happen? Why is such disengagement if in this no longer serving scenario?
Right. So disengagement in people working at companies, is that what you're asking about?
Yeah, disengagement from the employees to their settings, to their workplace, or to the reasons why they are working at a company in the first place. There's some, we have had a previous talk about disengagement at the workplace. So why do you think this is happening?
Yeah, great question. And I don't necessarily have all the answers, but some of my ideas are, one, there's an opportunity to do things better. So back when things were moving so slow and information wasn't so easily accessible, maybe there would have been more error than benefit from giving people more autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
But now, where that's not the case, there's actually a greater opportunity for everyone to engage more and take responsibility and create the circumstances in which they thrive, in which they do their best work. So technology has created more opportunity for that. And then also, it seems like now with technology and all of this ability to connect with people and spread ideas, now you're not just this one person thinking you're crazy, wanting things to be different. Whereas I imagine in the 19th century, you can't necessarily, you're just told that you're just being a big grown kid and you need to grown up and suck it up, that this is what being an adult means. It's not, you don't need to feel happy at work. You just need to get it done and be able to provide for yourself. And so I imagine that maybe now that we're able to share ideas, we can actually see that we're not just being crazy or irresponsible, that when we think things can be better in XYZ ways, we're not the only ones who think that, and maybe there's an actual truth to it. And so that makes it even harder to be tolerant with a system that is suboptimal.
Mm-hmm. Suboptimal. That kind of, it's a noisy word, but I mean, it conjures images of a lot of things. But I'm going to, I'll just save that for later, and I'm going to pass on the mic to Jorge and to Matt. So, Jorge.
Okay. It's really interesting what you're saying, because every time, as a person that works in I would call it a progressive organization, or an organization like that tries to do things better every time and to focus on people growing before anything else. I sometimes go there and think, I'll just do my job and it'll sort itself out. And that is kind of the part of me that is in denial that I am part of a bigger thing than myself, because I'm egocentric and I only think about, I'm going to do my job and let others do their job. So what I would like to ask you is, when you talk to people of different companies, do you think there's like an outreach, like managers or the people on top need to get the idea of doing something different? But what happens to the people? Do we, the people, need to change our minds too, so we can grow as a community inside of the company? What is that perspective? I don't know if it makes sense to you.
Sure, I'll respond and let me know if I answer your question. So it needs, well, I guess we should talk about what it is that needs to work, right? So we're talking about a work culture, an environment, a system that basically treats people like responsible adults, which means that they can make good decisions to achieve whatever objective. And so that requires a certain kind of mindset. If you are raising people in a culture where they're used to being told what to do and not to think for themselves, then and all of a sudden throw them into a culture where they should think critically and have an equal voice and have a stake in decision making in anything that they need to execute, then that might not work so well if you have this abrupt change. But so it does, you need to have certain personalities and mindsets. And in fact, that is something that the VP, Dean Carter, the VP of Human Resources at Patagonia said, we hire very independent people to get things done. And also the co-founder at Upworthy. So the same thing, we need self-driven, independent people. And the thing is, no matter what company you are, no matter what industry, why would you ever want anything less than independent, self-driven, critical thinking humans? But then you hire those people, and then if you don't let them think critically and make things happen, then what's the point of that? So does that answer your question?
I think it does. It leaves me at the point of you need certain type of people, but also if there's some other people there who are almost in that point of being independent, you need a culture that nourishes them into that new way of thinking, of being independent and getting things done, not waiting for someone to tell them what to do, but to self-organize and be autonomous. I think it was pretty clear.
Well, so here's the thing, and this is what Doug Kirkpatrick has said, is that people are already managers of their own lives. They're making decisions about, every detail from small to big about their own lives. And so why should it be different at work? And, you could make an argument for why it might be different. But the point is that people have the potential and usually want to make decisions and be proactive, and have responsibility and ownership and have a stake in the results. So there's an opportunity to leverage that rather than to just throw away that potential, I think. So there might be some people who are more prone to being independent and self-driven than others. I think just whenever you're hiring, you're looking for certain skills. And so if you're looking for someone who is a strategic thinker or is a great designer, that's also a skill that may or may not be relevant for the role that you're trying to fill. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is that there are going to be different cases for different roles and for different companies. And again, there's a lot of alternatives, and companies will need to try different things and see which model works best for them. And similarly, they'll see what kind of people work best for them and what kind of skills they're looking for and hire for those. And just like you need to hone your craft in whatever skill set you need for your work, whether you're a designer or a writer or an accountant. Similarly, I think that being self-driven and thinking critically and contributing actively to whatever's happening in a company is another skill that should be honed for you to do your best work.
I was going to mention that Doug and I have very similar views on, particularly that idea that we're all adults, and this always struck me as funny that at home you make decisions like buy a house, don't buy a house, what to do about a family member that's maybe passing away or in bad shape. And then you come to work and you have to raise your hand if you want to go number one and number two. And that's ultimately silly, right? And the other thing you said that really landed in a good spot with me is what you said. Is that is a skill. And it's a skill that we normally don't practice in our society because mostly people grow up being told what to do. You know, go wash your teeth, go do this, go do that. Some of that is training, but some of that just becomes the waiting for somebody to tell you what to do, and then you go to school, same thing. And then you go to work, it's the same thing. By the time you get to Nearsoft or any other company like that, we have to train you out of that and into, hey, look, these are the things that we expect from you, etc. But from our own experience, we've never, when people ask, how do you find people like this? And the answer is, everybody's like this. We've only had one case when a person actually told us, no, I'd rather have somebody tell me what to do. And we said, well, not on our nickel, it's fine, but we can't afford to do that. So, but it was one out of, I don't know, 250 people or so now and stuff like that. So most people want to do it if you give them an opportunity to do it. And they're good at it too. They have to.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting, especially I'm around a lot of entrepreneurs and, you know, I'll hear conversations like someone who was one person and then got a team, hired a couple of people, and I congratulated him. Oh, you have a team? That's great. And he's like, yeah, that also means I have people to manage. And I'm like, do you need to manage the people? And, you know, there's a lot of resistance to that idea because it's just the way it's always been. But at the same time, more and more people, especially who are, you know, the sought after talent, they're actually having a lower tolerance for not having the autonomy and flexibility that they need to do their best work. So it's an interesting tension, and we'll see, you know, kind of what eats what and how it plays out. But it seems like more and more with newer companies, some of the newer, most talented people are just have very different expectations for how to work and therefore live their lives. And it seems like soon enough, companies are going to be left behind if they don't adapt and if they don't evolve, because the best talent is going to go to the companies that respects them as responsible adults who embraces the full human. And we can talk more about what that means. And so they're just going to have, you know, the lower pickings, so to say. Not that humans should be looked at as lower pickings, but just in terms of innovators and talent and creators.
Yes, I quite agree with that. Have you had a chance to talk to Pim de Moray and the guys from his partner Juice from Corporate Rebels?
I did. Yes, we connected. I saw their interview. Shout out to Corporate Rebels. Yeah. We connected. Very excited to hear I was very excited to hear their story and to connect with them. Love what they're doing. So we're on a similar mission. Just they're literally going to these places and seeing how these companies do what they do, what their culture is like. And so far, I've just been calling them up on the phone. So it's great. We'll see. We're going to see if there's a way to join forces.
Oh, great! That'd be great. You guys are both very good storytellers. So,
thank you.
I was going to ask you. So, how are you focusing now on just the kind of companies that are doing the what I call the DIY crusade, you know, do-it-yourself crusade, as opposed to Holacracy or something like that, or what is your target that you're writing about? What is it you're writing about?
And can you repeat the first part of the question? You said, "What am I focusing?"
Yeah. What are what kind of companies are you looking to connect with? Are you only focusing on progressive companies, or just talking to different companies and finding out what they do?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing?
Well, at this time, and how my article series started, it's just, I know that there are companies that are doing things very differently in terms of their work culture, their processes, their management model, and they are outperforming their traditional counterparts. And so they're setting a precedent for doing things better. So I wanted to get an inside look on what is it like and how does it work. You know, for example, Patagonia, you Google them and there's a bunch of articles on let my people go surfing and just talking about the on-site childcare and, you know, people going surfing in the middle of the day. But I didn't find any information on how does it actually work. And so that's what I wanted to get at. So that's what I was doing in these interviews. One, starting with companies that are clearly thriving, that you can't deny are, you know, have laudable results. And then I'd love to keep doing that and keep finding companies of different sizes in different industries, and that have been around for different durations. So like Patagonia has been around for decades, but then Upworthy is just 4 years old, and they are the fastest growing media site in all of history. Their engagement numbers are totally outperforming their traditional counterparts. And I mean, that's in less than 4 years. They caught my attention at least 2 years ago when they already had, it seemed like, mass brand recognition. And they've already done so much experimentation and changed things up. And they're a completely distributed company where most people can work from anywhere. And you go on their careers page and it even says, hey, you know, work for us. You can work from anywhere. Go move to Montana if you want. So they're just really kind of flipping the traditional ideas of what kind of circumstances we can do good work in. They're really flipping that idea on its head.
Yeah, WordPress, by the way, is also 100% distributed.
Yes, Automatic, founder, creators of WordPress. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to talk to them eventually as well.
Okay.
Right.
There was. Oh,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay,
I just need to remind you, Jorge, that we still have 5 minutes. We're 5 minutes away from wrapping up. So if you want to go ahead and shoot your question to Katya, now's the time, please.
Okay. That was just something that standing out from what you said earlier, that there's not one formula for traditional companies to become or to change to a newer model. And you said something that really resonated, which is whatever works for your company. Because when people ask me about the place I work at and how we do things, they don't seem to imagine how they could adapt that thing to whatever they're doing. And I've talked to construction workers, people who do something outside of software, and some companies are doing it. So what would be, maybe this isn't fair, but what would be your advice for a more traditional company to start doing this? Because there's not one methodology that will actually get you there, like on the first go. So what would you say to them to try to motivate them and change the way they work?
Yeah, start by researching. Don't jump into anything. Research what the different models and approaches are. Research who has tried which ones. And also keep in mind that if you see it doesn't work in a certain company, it doesn't necessarily mean that the model doesn't work. It might mean that that company did not implement it effectively, just like public policy. So do research what the approaches are, who's done it, where has it worked, why has it not worked, and see what makes sense to you for what you're doing and your principles and your values, and then start experimenting. Ideally small, efficient, low-cost experiments. Start small. Maybe you start with the team, not the whole company, and see what works and see what doesn't work. And back to the principles, like for example, Upwork, an online platform for freelancers. They were founded, their two co-founders were oceans apart. One was living in Greece, the other in Silicon Valley, and they built this cutting edge technology that's doing fantastically well. And their principle and their value was that at this point in 2016, you should not be limited to who you work, how you work, or who you work with, or how you work. So in fact, their slogan is work without limits, if I remember it correctly. I think that's verbatim. And so your access to talent should not be limited by location. And so everything that they do is based in that principle. So really check what your principles are. Why do you do what you do? Why do you exist? Why does your business exist? And see which models after research make sense for you, and start doing small, quick and fast experiments. And it seems like you really need to make sure that everyone's on board. So with Holacracy and Zappos, I definitely need to look into it more, into that example. But it seems like it was kind of top down. It was maybe imposed on everyone in the company. And then it seems like, so if there's not total buy-in, there's those tensions, and then things aren't implemented effectively. So all of those things would be my advice: to research, experiment, and get full buy-in. Make sure that everyone's involved in the decision, at least enough to say, okay, let's try this.
Very good advice.
Thank you, Katya. Thank you, Jorge. Okay. Well, unfortunately, I think we're about to wrap up today's broadcast, folks out there. What I would like to just ask Katya before we go is, if you could leave us and our audience with some final words of wisdom in what it takes to build a really, truly innovative business. What would it be, Katya?
The $1 million question.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, a few things come to mind. But it really seems like it comes down to how the greatest risk is just not taking any risks at all.
Mm-hmm. Not taking any risks. Okay, cool. I got it.
Yeah, and just letting that guide you.
Yeah. I'm sorry, can you repeat again what you said?
Yeah. So how the idea that the greatest risk is not taking any risks at all.
Oh, of course.
And letting that guide you.
Excellent.
That's what I'm trying to do.
All right, there you have it, folks. Well, if you really want to know more about what it takes to build a really, truly the most innovative business and what they have in common, you can also visit here, katyacreates.com. It's right here, right, Katya? It's that's your URL, your website, katyacreates.com.
That is my website. The articles are not on my website; they're on Virgin's website.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have links to some of the articles on there. So that is a way to find it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Katya, the only thing for me left to do is simply, a big thank you for your presence here in DojoLIVE. We're honored to have you here. We're honored. And again, thank you, Matt, as ever, and Jorge also. And I look forward to being in touch. And Katya, again, thank you so much. And I hope you have a great day and take care in Boston.
Thank you. Great talking to you guys.
Absolutely, our pleasure.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye,
guys.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.